Hey, John, what's going on?
Roosevelt, how are you? Opening day of college football, so I'm pretty excited. But I'm not wearing a football LSU. I'll change into my LSU shirt tonight, just before 6:30 kickoff. But I'm wearing celebrating that this is the 60th anniversary of MLK's March on Washington, and the I Have a Dream uh, moment. So what a momentous day for us as we're still talking about making that dream happen. And so, real quick, an update. I've been working with NLCOG. We meet once a month and observe what the government's doing, Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments. And so, the Committee of 100, which really wants us to fold up and go away, has started demanding that they talk about it in every meeting. So I'm like, okay, game on. So we got letters from the Patsman Civic Organization, old documents from when the highway was killed by the FHWA. A no-bill decision was handed down in 1996. And so I've been enjoying meeting monthly and reading them from those documents. And it turns out it wasn't anything magical happened or anything. It was the federal law that got the no-bill decision last time, and I have it documented in a letter from FHWA to U.S. Senator John Brough saying it's against the law to build through Allendale because of the 1965 Transportation Act and because of the 1966 NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act. So those laws are still in effect. Allendale's still Allendale. The wetlands are still the wetlands. And in that letter, FHWA suggested using the loop 3132, the state Caddo Parish Highway, for if we ever really needed a connector. They said at the time they didn't even think we needed it, and so they were like, "We're not going to, break laws. It's not a national emergency." And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're coming to this conclusion again. This year or early next year, we'll get a decision on this. But I've said enough.
I mean, you said a lot. You said a
Yeah,
lot.
it's just such good news. I couldn't keep it in because finding that solved a lot of mysteries. We would hear things like, well, Sister Margaret, a Catholic nun who was very involved in the neighborhood and very vocal. And I didn't realize the people who fought it were the Patsman Civic Club. And Patsman's the street that runs right by the most historic site in Allendale is this old Civil War, remains of the Civil War Fort, Albert Sidney Johnson, and also Swepco Park, which we're working on restoring. One of the things they jab at us about is that we only got one song in our songbook. We're just about stopping the highway, but no, we're also working on putting the park back together after the government took all of the stuff out of it so it wouldn't be a block for the highway. They said, well, it's not a park anymore, but it's still a historic Civil War fort site. So, we're also still working on our grocery co-op for Allendale and for the whole city, really. So there's still a lot more exciting stuff going on. But I'm stoked about this guest. His dad is a friend of mine of a year or two. And so anyway, when I heard about what his son had been doing, I was like, whoa, we got to get him on the show. Why don't you go ahead and bring him on?
I mean, and I mean that's a great lead up to it. This young man, you told me about him, and when you was giving me his accolades, I was like, wow, okay, this right here is a great representative for the Shreveport area. A young man that has went off and is doing great things, and hopefully will do more great things. And we're looking forward to hearing about all of the great things that he's accomplished already. His name is Bobby Shell. How you doing today, Bobby Shell?
I'm doing really well. It's a good time. The heat supposedly goes down next week. I don't know if I'll believe it until I see it, but I think that'll
It's going
help.
to drop down into the 90s next week for the highs. So that's going to be amazing. Yeah, sad note is that there are a lot of wildfires burning in Louisiana. Hate to say it because I've been in hurricanes, but a hurricane would be kind of ease a lot of problems, but create a whole nother set of. But there's one town in Louisiana that's completely evacuated yesterday. So brutal times in brutal heat.
Yeah,
But
let's pray for those people that are dealing with
amen,
the wildfires.
amen.
Um,
But
you- Go ahead.
Bobby just comes from such an all-American Shreveport, you know, background. His dad, Bob, is my friend, and he was a Navy vet, you know, and just a classic Southern Shreveport guy who's seen the world. But as I understand it, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't really go to the finest schools. You're not a private ed guy. I think you were just raised like through regular public schools, and you just had a great experience in our public schools, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, I went to Summer Grove Elementary and then Ridgewood Middle School, and then I went because we moved neighborhoods. So I went to Captain Shreve because that was the closest high school, which is a little bit of a different experience too, from Ridgewood to Captain Shreve, different neighborhoods and people. But and yeah, I eventually made it to Princeton somehow with
Wow.
the help of a lot of like really good counselors at Shreve and a little bit of luck, you know. Sometimes you
Mhm.
have to kind of hit moments right. And so I'm really, you know, grateful for like all the people that helped me, you know, get to that point. And now I'm back um, for the near future. So I'm like trying to give back as much as I can right now. Hopefully, I'll you know continue to do that. Yeah, no, it was great. I had a great experience in the public schools, but um, I think that's just down to sort of individual teachers giving it their all and sort of having, um, I mean, just, yeah, I mean, having like kind of faith in public schools. I feel like when people take that out, it takes away a big experience like that has kind of really benefited me, you know, socially, how to talk to people, how to like sort of level with people. And I feel like if you're at private school, you kind of know how to talk to maybe private school people or people, you know, of a certain background, but public school has everybody, you know, you have to all come together. Uh,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, I mean, I have great, really, you know, really fond memories. I think the Shreveport community is very like underfunded, but I mean, very good. That's why they should be funded more.
Well,
It's
it speaks well of your schools, Shreve. I'm a Bird guy, but Bird has some good students come through it too. But your teachers must have been excited for you after all of those years of work for you to get to Princeton, and you probably ran into some private school people up there, but but you survived, and it can be done in
Yeah,
Shreve.
how was your Princeton experience?
I will say it's a big learning curve. It was like my freshman year was pretty difficult just because of sort of going from like a sort of public school where you have kind of an idea of where your path is going to go, and even with like the advanced placement classes, you know, it's sort of a little bit more straightforward. Whereas like, you know, you're starting to study like economic theory or like, you know, political, like large macro level political ideas and things like that. So it was a bit difficult, but honestly, like after my first semester, I was, you know, starting to get my feet under me, and then like COVID happened. And so I had to do a little bit of Princeton University in Shreveport for a little bit. Brought it home. And yeah, I feel like while it was difficult, I definitely think it's just really worth it on all the very strange but like really great experiences I had. You know, you talked about like private school kids. There was also people from boarding schools, which I didn't know we had here. That was a new concept for me. I was kind of like, wait, so you like got sent away for like months at a time? I was a little bit confused. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't trade it. I definitely feel very like blessed and very lucky to have, you know, gotten into the door, and also, you know, repping Shreveport. I always tried to bring it up in every class, even if it didn't seem like it was, you know, a lot. I definitely tried to bring up, you know, Shreveport and like how growing up in Louisiana was, because I think and I think I met everyone from my class here from Louisiana. I think there was 5 of us.
Yeah.
And I know that me and my friend Jojo were the only people from up north. The rest were from one from Baton Rouge and the rest from New Orleans. So I hope we repped it well. I know that he was a math major, so I ended up going into policy because I had been a little bit active in Shreveport and a little bit active in my classes, like going to a few protests here and there, and then trying to find out like why Shreveport was being left behind. Like you hear about all these really good, things happening elsewhere, and you're like, why can't that happen here? And so a lot of that drove me to get really into the policy side of things, which I'm glad I did. It worked out. I'm now like very passionate about environmental policy, where I didn't think that would even be something that I would be. I'm like, this is like so important right now.
Seems really important. Funny you say that because in Ocala, I need to get you up early. They start at 9 o'clock once a month, and but these people are so in their little Shreveport fishbowl, and they're very powerful within that tiny, tiny little fishbowl. They're wealthy, and they're like they were in the hubbub before the meeting started. Once they were kind of denigrating us, why don't you guys learn something? And I was like, all right, could I just ask one thing? We're just, and why is it when all the other cities in the nation, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration, are removing inner city highways and using the reconnecting neighborhoods funds to put in boulevards and make a better life for people? Why is it you guys still want to build a highway through Shreveport? And the lady just like her jaw dropped. She said, "Oh yeah, well, what about Dallas?" And I was like, "Okay, what about Dallas?" They their city council ran on. They had a very strong towns type of city council, younger folks, and they ran on some of them. I'll stop the Trinity River Tollway project. I'll just veto it, So got elected, and then they went in and said, "What are we doing with the good old Rogers Highway? Let's cap and bury it and put a really nice park and raise already high property values even higher." Then they voted to allow residential living downtown. I couldn't believe they didn't already allow that. And now they've just voted to tell TxDOT that they're ready to cap and bury I-345, a short little connector through there. So yeah, what about Dallas? Go ahead and ask me another question. But we need younger guys like you to come along, and I need to introduce you around while you're here and let you speak to them about these environmental impacts that highways bring. And they don't realize it, but there are kids that go to 2 private schools, the 2 really hoity-toity ones, St. Mark's and Southfield, 2 of the oldest private schools, are within 1,500 feet of the highway. Didn't you say you and your dad got a air quality notice? You're living close to I-49 right now too. So yeah, I don't think they think what they're talking about. They just think, I guess, money, but it's made our city poorer for it. So how did you get interested in, then was it an environmental issue that you said you actually looked at air quality in Shreveport as part of your studies?
Yeah, so before that study, I did a research paper on, it was a New Jersey specific policy on electric school buses and electrifying school buses. And they were trying to do a pilot because they thought, okay, well, if we do a pilot in some communities, maybe we can figure out which communities need them the best, and we can sort of figure out how they fare in like North New Jersey versus South Jersey, because South Jersey is like a lot worse roads and a lot like more sparse charging stations. And so what I did was I sort of investigated where this policy was coming from, because it was lacking what I call environmental justice language, which sounds like sort of a very strange idea, but basically what environmental justice deals with is ensuring that all the environmental benefits go equitably, not equally, but equitably. So whoever is hardest hit gets the environmental benefits first versus who is the lowest hit gets them the last. And so it's sort of just like a very, you know, good way to make policy, because if you help the lower, you're going to help everyone else eventually. So
Right. That's one of the reasons we have the 1966 NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, is to stop destroying the environment and to stop destroying the air in neighborhoods that have highways running through them. It's but these guys are ignorant of the 1966. They ask, "What's stopping the highway?" Well, it's the 1966 NEPA Act. So tell me more about this study. Then, what did you learn?
Yeah, so what I learned was that they had planned on basically, you know, monopolizing it to rich communities because they had like lower amount of locations, and they weren't going to be sparing with electric buses. And they were also using first generation electric school buses, which are worse actually than diesel school buses on a long-term scale. They just found that out. That's new information that like I learned back in like 2021. And so you see like second gen and third gen electrified buses are kind of the norm now in like rich communities. So you'll see them sort of go in mainly because they last longer on charges and you don't have to use as much electricity, which because we don't have renewable electricity, it comes
Right.
from fuels. And so it's sort of this weird loop that you don't really think about and that we didn't think about for a long time. So I like basically critiqued that bill, but in the process, I got to learn from one of my like favorite professors ever, Professor Nikki Sheets, who's on the White House Environmental Justice Council. He's a very well like sort of known person because he's been sort of like everywhere. He's like been from New Jersey to New Orleans all the way to like California. And so it was really fun to learn from someone that was like seasoned in fighting against like highways and fighting against like really bad like bus and zoning policies. And learning that from him sort of made me inspired to where my next class, which was my next research paper for my junior year, was on reparations and sort of taking that however you wanted to. And so I was like, okay, I know that Shreveport has a big history with racism and a big history because of like what happened with the Civil War monument. That brought a lot of things out when I was in high school and like learned about this. And so when I had the chance to revisit some of those and like, okay, where are we at now? What can we do now to try and equitably distribute money, resources, whatever, to help bring these, you know, communities of color up? And so that led me down a lot of different pathways, but one of the more successful ways of getting what is sort of indirect reparations is what it's called. I know that there's a different sort of terminology for it, but it's confusing and why use that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But basically it's indirect reparations. So you find a crime or a violation in the past against a community of color that actually violates laws, that actually violates things that can be, you know, sort of either sued on, like via lawsuits in court, that can then get resources back to that community. That's one way of indirect reparations. So one way, for instance, I was saying in North Carolina and also in California, was finding out they violated 1966 NEPA. They violated federal policy on air quality, and they did it knowingly. And that's sort of the big thing, is like proving that it was done knowingly.
Wow.
And so
how did they figure that out? Did they
luck.
write? Did they do it really? I mean, I was wondering if there was like they got into their emails through a Freedom of Information Act, or
Well, you probably think of way before emails.
yeah, like it was like really.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, you'd have to go to files. But we've used Freedom of Information Act and found out some pretty unusual.
Yeah, I mean, I think through the Freedom of Information Act, they found in some sort of council planning office a specific, like, it's kind of funny because it's like sort of a smoking gun that it's almost like too good to be true, but they found a map of zoning that was specifically circling communities of color for development. And it's sort of like, it almost seems like it's like a cartoon villain type of thing where, you know, you feel like is this real? Like, are they really just that open with it? And the case is, in a lot of places, yes, because they don't expect you to look.
Right.
And so, like, with that, and through proving that the air quality was worse near a highway, which, I mean, it kind of, it seems common sense, but to find the like actual evidence and to take those readings is
Right.
really important. And sort of seeing that like highways and I mean anything, it's kind of a, once you see the sailboat and sort of the dots, you really can't unsee it, because once you sort of see, okay, this is connected to redlining, what isn't connected to redlining, you see that actually a lot of things were connected to that, like the lack of development, where highways went, where factories and sort of like incinerator facilities went. It all sort of coincides, and there's a really good graph that I'll try and get Nikki to send to me, because it's based on a lot of his research, where you take and I might be butchering this, but I think it's when you take where environmental problems are and you put it over where communities of color are, the map is a 1-to-1 correlation.
Wow.
The maps and the graphs are near 1-to-1, which is, if in research terms, that's like a gold, that's like a diamond. That's sort of like a 10 out of 10 case for anything, when it's like a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And like, especially that
But
you can see it on like maps. That's a big thing. If you can see it on a map and you can actually see this is not just, you know, someone messing with statistics. It's like, it was a really big find for him, and I'll have to get him to send me the graph. It's his like prized possession. He like really loves that.
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
like
you're
to see if
starting to
we
see a
can bring
lot of
him.
that in the Houston and Baton Rouge area, where they're finding a lot of environmental problems in areas that were predominantly of minorities, you know, Hispanic or Black, right? Right now, there's a controversy in Houston where they're building a mixed income, or suppose they call it mixed income, but they keep throwing in a low income terminology in there, but a kind of low income development right next to a super fund.
Oh man.
And this is the crazy part. They're going to move the people from one development that they were closing because it was on a super fund to this new one next to a super fund.
Yeah,
I
So
guess step up in the right direction.
there you go,
you know,
Bobby.
they'll be far enough away from a super fund.
Yeah, it's probably one of the craziest cases, but you're not surprised. And I know that probably hit you when, you know, well, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you saw that 1-for-1, you see it, you understand it, and like you said, once you see the dots connect, it's hard to unsee it. It seemed like everything just kind of like, wait, hold on, where's this? Okay, I look at a red line map, you know, like the one in Shreveport.
Yep.
Allendale is actually that yellow because at the time it was mostly immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
But below it, right, Ledbetter Heights, Lakeside, you know,
Crosstown.
Crosstown.
Crosstown's slum now. They called that what is it, slum eradication, when they built I-20 through Crosstown.
Yeah, yeah.
They praised it in the newspapers.
So
Oh my goodness.
it was a yellow spot surrounded by red spots, and then you look, and then you go down the railroad track down through Cedar Grove, and one side Highland, one side Cedar Grove. It's red. It's kind of dotted green because it's right next to a red. You can't put a blue next to a red. It's yellow, green, red, yellow, green. It's kind of dotted.
Mm-hmm.
And what you start to see is a lot of the blue, yellow, the green, I'm sorry, the green and yellow were businesses that were where I-49 was at. So that's why they had the yellow and green, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and let you jump back in, but when you said that, it like you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's like Moortown and Queensboro are inside of our loop of interstates from 20 to 49 and 3132. And the folks that live inside of the loop have higher incidences of birth mortalities and birth mothers more likely to die. There's a higher incidence of gunshots, of gun injuries and deaths inside the loop around the highways. You look, a lot of times they're very close to a highway. You know, that some of the most tragic stories in Shreveport. Bobby, what else did you learn about Shreveport?
Well, I mean, the redlining map was like sort of the real big, like, because, you know, common sense tells you, and if you've lived here long enough, you kind of get to see like just some communities are just always having bad things, like sort of what is this like common denominator. And besides the fact that like they're almost always majority minority communities, it's that they're either by a highway, by a sewer treatment plant in the case of like a little bit further down, or by somewhere that has particulate matter, which is like a very specific, more common near highways, but it's common wherever you see pollution. And it's these particulates that are so small you can't even really detect them until they've already really impacted you. Sometimes as small as 2.5 microns, which is really, I mean, you hear micron, just know it's like very tiny. You can't even like, even an N95 mask, if you wore it all the time, wouldn't get probably 70% of it or 80% of it. And what that does, we now have a lot of health studies that the environmental justice, people who fight for environmental justice will point to, where you see that these, you know, lead to a higher increase in heart attacks. It affects the cardiovascular system the most. And in Shreveport, what that means is like for mothers specifically, they'll have lower birth weights, they'll have a higher risk of mortality during birth, even if there are no complications, which there probably will be, higher rates of immature or premature birth. And in Shreveport, we have the lowest birth weight in the state, and Louisiana has the lowest average birth weight in the nation. So Shreveport, if you connect the dots there, has the lowest birth weight in the entire nation in one of our zip codes, which...
Yeah, YWCA says that inside the loop, right near Willis-Knighton Hospital, you know, that it has a high incidence of everything. I also know, though, like older folks are more likely to have dementia if they live near highways. They're also more likely to have the heart attacks and all that. And then don't get me started on all the lead that we dumped out in the environment, and on the homes that didn't get repainted regularly. The paint chips fell off and went into the dirt, and that was leaded too, but all the lead in the gasoline fumes. What a mess.
Yeah, I mean, lead also has a very long half-life of like decay. So, I mean, we're all the lead that was dumped, like even like say like 50 years ago, if like lead was dumped somewhere, it still hasn't decayed. I mean, it's still, you're still feeling like the full effects of whatever leaded paint, leaded gasoline fumes, like whatever that's in the soil. It's gonna stay for a very long time. I mean, long past even like my life. So people need to realize like environmental things, they have huge consequences for a very long time. And there's also, I'll try and share this tool with you if I can find it. It's by the Environmental Protection Agency. They have an environmental justice screening tool. And what that does is they've combined a lot of environmental justice factors, including like PM 2.5, lead, asbestos. There's a few other like sort of lists. And you can check, and it will have all the statistics and all the reporting and research in a particular area. And they have it for the entire country. So I looked at it for Shreveport, and it's no surprise a lot of the maps are the same. I mean, PM 2.5, where lead is still prevalent, where insert pollutant is still prevalent, it's typically in the same areas. I mean, you rarely see it deviate, and they're almost always by highways, they're almost always by like hospitals, by places that are poorer, more impoverished. And basically, like I took this environmental sort of angle as sort of like one option for like reparations through indirect reparations. Mainly because like, again, despite however much you teach people about inequality or however much you try and get the message across that like how much was actually stolen from, like, for instance, people that were enslaved, like how much was stolen from the African American community is almost inquantifiable. You have people that try to with the 1619 project. I think they estimated it was like what, $100 trillion,
Yeah,
somewhere around there, probably more.
I hate to laugh, but I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's incalculable.
it's
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
literally, it's like so much that like, but even still, with any evidence you put, people are not into reparations. So one way that I was like, hey, why not try to sort of unite communities and fight for it, fight for getting funds
Mm.
back in the communities that need them. Another sort of way for that is basically like having community funds, which is sort of, it's not the same. Again, it's because it's community funds, it's voluntarily raised, and sort of you're going out of your way to try and get people to like donate to it. But it's still better than nothing. Like whether that be, a larger fund on the national steam, or whether that be like a locally funded thing. Like for instance, for like specifically Allendale, or for like communities like Queensboro, or like where the Cooper Road is.
Well, or Moortown has the Calumet refinery, and
Yeah.
they really want that highway through Allendale, but it has the Calumet refinery and I-20 running right. They're right there nestled together, and I just can't imagine the bad health effects of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a study would be great. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. You're about to say exactly what I was about to say. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think a study of health effects in Allendale specifically, and in Moortown, and like I think a large scale Shreveport health study would definitely go a long way in forwarding, like, in kind of stopping any sort of avoidance of the issue. Like they're going to have to come out right front and say, we don't care about minority communities, like, because that is sort of what it comes off as. And even if you give them enough evidence, eventually things kind of, I think, narrow down to where there's only a few choices left, and that's one of the main ones. But
yeah, it's one of the things that you find out, especially with a lot of politicians, is that they all kind of use the same playbook, right? It reminds me of Machiavelli's book, The Prince, right? Like they kind of follow that same playbook of that book, right? And it's really, if I say, oh, I can, I can give you money, I can get you jobs, I can do this, and then you say, well, that means you're gonna put a refinery in my neighborhood. Whether you're gonna have a job, right?
yeah.
But later on down the line, your kids are going to have asthma, and birth rates are going to be low, and it's kind of the I read oh my, let me see if I can find it. I just read a book, and just so happened to be about Louisiana, where they interviewed some hold on, let me see if I can find it. No, is it white trash? No, not white trash, but it was written by Nancy Eisenberg.
Okay.
And Nancy Eisenberg wrote this book, and it was after white trash. And one of the things that she interviewed these people, and they worked in these refineries down in South Louisiana, and their homes were surrounded by a bayou that they could not even fish in, because the refineries that they worked at was polluting the waters. And the same people that worked at these refineries, the factories, were telling them, just pollute your waters, right? And don't worry about it, because we're gonna, we're giving you jobs. Like, why are you so mad, right? Why, don't be mad about this. You can't fish anymore, no, right? You can't even use the water in the area that you live, but you have a job, right? And I think that's a lot of times the kind of decision. They tell us you can't have both. You can't have a healthy, good life and work. Like, who does that? And then you look over and you look at Europe and you're like, all of them, all the Scandinavian countries, they're doing that. Like, I want what they have.
They're doing just fine. Yeah, they don't have that decision to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, Cancer Alley is still a thing. I mean, that unfortunate. Like, I mean, people again, like it seems like that was reported on a while ago, but it never goes away. That's the thing with environmental issues that I think is so challenging for some people, is they're used to sort of a problem being solved either relatively quickly or like over like 40 years, 30 years. But with environmental issues, is what we know now, is like that's just not the case. People are going to be dealing with this like throughout my life and throughout, like, if I have kids, throughout their life. And with climate change sort of accelerating, I think this year people are feeling it a lot more. So maybe we'll have a little bit more action on like sort of making ourselves a bit more comfortable. But like this, it's sort of a half joke, but also half sad truth, is that probably this will be the coolest summer that we all experience for a bit, because it's going to take a while for us to lower the temperature again. It sounds crazy when we've had, like, I think yesterday we got to 110 in Shreveport, or 2 days
Yeah,
ago.
record since 1881 in Shreveport. Yeah,
Oh,
it
wow.
was
I mean,
remarkable. Yeah, somebody said, I heard it the other day. This is not only the hottest summer of your life, but this will now be the coolest summer that you'll remember going forward. It's not going to get better before it gets worse.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
in Atlanta, we just broke records, and today um we might break a record in the Atlanta area. Right, it says it's supposed to be 99, but the meteorologist is saying it most likely will hit 100.
oh, it's late August. We're almost in September. This is where, like, I mean, schools up north normally start this late because a lot of them don't have like full AC units. They don't have HVAC systems. They have temporary or window units. And so it's like interesting to me because, what, New Jersey, Boston, New York, all these things that typically start first week of September, well, it's still 100 degrees there. They're not used to that. And like, even if we kind of are, it's still kind of a wild thing to be thinking we probably won't be done with like the 90s until October. And that, even for Louisiana standards, that's just kind of crazy to think about. But heat exacerbates all things. So this heat, kills the grass, it kills all these things. It brings, because of sort of the soil erosion that we've already experienced, the heat brings more of that, and it brings all of those bad chemicals, the ones that we built over, the ones that we haven't thought about for a while. It brings them back to the surface. And so now is sort of the most dangerous time, even on highways, because a lot of that stuff builds up, but the heat makes it like it releases it. And we're getting to the point where we're having such high temperatures for so long that all these things that we haven't thought about are coming back to the surface. And it's sort of like almost a ghost coming back to haunt you for like sort of what you did in the past. It seems dramatic when you put it like that, but it almost is, because like St. Mark's is relatively close to me. The air quality like here was so bad yesterday. It was in sort of the orange zone. And again, that could be also because of the fires that are like kind of moving up north from north winds. But like, it's not good. Like I ended up being out in that yesterday without being aware of the air quality warning, and it was bad. Like, I got home and I was like exhausted from having your body gets exhausted from having to deal with that. And so like, if I'm like a young person feeling that, I can only imagine what someone in their like 60s or 70s or older would be like experiencing. I mean, I assume it'd be really bad. That's all of that to say that like a lot of like my environmental policy has been focused on environmental justice, because I recognize that Shreveport was an environmental justice community. I didn't have those terms. I didn't know what that was until I got to Princeton, but I try to spread that term as much as I can, because a lot more people live in environmental justice communities than they think. And even rich people here, because of it being so strangely designed, the city, you have like rich communities right next to poor communities. The rich communities, there isn't just some sort of force field around them. They can afford, you know, really good health care, but they're still feeling those effects, like regardless of if they like feel it now or if their children will feel it. But yeah, I mean, environmental justice communities, I think a lot more people are recognizing themselves as that, which is good because there are now, or there will be soon, a lot of federal protections coming through if the White House task force can actually like stay together. Again, 2024, I'm trying not to think about that because that's far enough away, but it's 2024 will be very important for people, not just like national elections, but like local elections become way more important where environmental policy is concerned, because again, like they just passed a really good, you know, Build Back Better bill, a lot of environmental investment, but we're not going to see that money for a very long time. I mean, I think the estimates were like payouts and things will start like 2026, 2027 for like sort of communities like ours. So yeah, I mean, it's very vital that we get people either in the city council or in like mayoral races and governor races that care about the environment, because we're kind of on a short leash right now. I mean, people don't want to experience the real impacts of climate change, because we're just now getting like sort of a taste of what that is. I don't know. I mean, hurricane season is like right now, like we're in sort of the peak time, so we'll see what happens. But
so as far as since you're a policy guy, right? As far as local policies that because you know we talk about, you know, the government and the powerful government and this and that, but a lot of times local governments only have so much they can do. What is some of the policy that you've seen or studied that you think can be implemented here in Shreveport that may even pass?
that's actually a really good point. And I think my mind immediately goes to New Jersey, because like living there and sort of you get like more of like every day in the news, there's something sort of that they're doing because they're really trying to get ahead on the environmental justice front. I would look to them. They just recently passed a state law, but I mean, I feel like you could maybe adapt it for local law, but it's just the environmental justice law is what it's called. And basically it provides protections for certain communities and prevents zoning and siting of certain facilities, certain new facilities. So if anything's been sited and is being built, they can't stop that, but nothing can be built again. That's a specific policy that I think could work here. I don't think anyone wants to live next to refineries or next to incinerators. And so I feel like, again, you know, people will say, oh, it's going to cost so much. That's more of an upfront cost. In the long run, studies have shown that people are happier, people work more because they aren't dealing with asthma, or they're not dealing with like any sort of new complications from those facilities. And so I feel like that would be just a show of good faith to the citizens of Shreveport and, you know, maybe Caddo Parish more generally, because you're kind of like setting a line in the sand that, you know, you're showing not only solidarity, but you're also showing that you don't want to make things worse for people. I also, this is going to be a controversial one because it always is, but, you know, stop giving tax breaks to people to come here for jobs. I mean, it's a lot of people go by this very like old theory from sort of the Reaganomics era, where if you give people up top breaks, it trickles down. And that just, I feel like, as much as that seems like it makes sense, it just doesn't. Like it sort of imagine it more as a pyramid, less of like just a normal building, more of a pyramid. If the bottom is stronger, everything else will be sort of nice and uniform. But if it isn't, you get these weird jagged edges and it will eventually sort of fall. So yeah, I think just stop giving tax breaks. I mean, we already have a quite low tax rate. If that doesn't get people here, I don't know what will. Also, I guess in relation to this, stop building highways to bring in businesses. Again, that's a little bit dated. that was just sort of another thing to try to avoid. I guess those are my two avoid policies.
I mean, Tina Hines, who's a friend of Allendale Strong, sent out an email to us. Shout out to Tina for this. It's a book by Charles Montgomery, which I am reading right now, called Happy City. And I just started reading the book, but the book really goes into that. It goes into the idea that if we make a city that goes toward happiness instead of what cities are constantly trying to do, and that's kind of make these cities that are these they're trying to make it car centric, try to make it, oh, we're going to give everybody this single family home, everybody gets this yard and picket fence, and it's not feasible, right? It's not feasible. People having homes are feasible. Everybody being able to have a home is feasible, but you have to think about the whole scope of everything. And one of the things, and like I said, I just started, but one of the things he does bring up is the environmental part of it. Like you said, nobody wants to, live next to a highway, right? Nobody wants to live next to a refinery. Nobody wants, to live next to a factory. Nobody wants these crazy smells that you get from your water because they're dumping chemicals into the lake, river, or stream next to you. That makes a happy city, right? And I mean, everything you said, I'm totally with you. If Colorado City, Colorado, it's a Air Force town. Everybody I know that lived in that city loves it. They're like, oh my God, I want to get stationed there, right? They have family. They want to get stationed there. You look up Colorado City, Colorado is not this bustling metropolitan. All they do is they do things that is feasible for the community, right? They make these great decisions about traffic and things like that, right? And you start to see that people are happier in towns that think about the people of the town and not always trying to make this, trying to be like Dallas. John, so I and it, like you said earlier, in the environment affects everybody. Right now, you say you stay pretty close to the interstate, and when you got that notification of the air quality, what was it like? What was the first thought that you thought when you was did you look out your window and look at the interstate and think that all of a sudden you're gonna see like charcoal and dark rain come down from it? Like what was your first thought?
Yeah, I mean, to me, because like I just gotten back inside when like my phone gave me the air quality warning, and it had been like I think like 15, 20 minutes before. And to me, it kind of like was like, oh, that makes more sense. Because I was like, why am I like that? Because I felt it in my body. I felt just like tired. Like I just gone to the store. Like I just kind of picked up some bread and like a few necessities. Like that was it. How am I this like tired and exhausted? And like I saw that, and my first thought was like, that makes complete sense. I'm always by a highway. The air quality is even worse because of the wildfires. Like, of course, I'm gonna like. It made it make more sense to me. Like, it's almost like it was like I was like, man, why am I feeling like this? And immediately I got an answer of, oh, well, the air that I was breathing in just now is like orange level, which is not great. I don't like it's hard to like, it's not that the air is orange, but it's basically you shouldn't spend a lot of time outdoors, I think is what that means. I think what the limit for orange is like you shouldn't be outside for more than like 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Now you were, and I want to make sure I get this right. You are alumni Princeton Rise Fellow. What is an alumni Princeton Rise Fellow?
So thankfully, I did get to graduate from.
Congratulations on that.
It was a tough thing. I think I submitted my final thesis paper. I think a minute before the deadline. So I always loved to cut it close. I always loved the dramatics. So I thankfully did get graduated. But during my time at Princeton, instead of taking internships with like finance companies, which is very common in the policy field, especially at elite institutions, which it's a little bit turning at Princeton. You have a lot more people that are into social inequity and sort of environmental policy, but still, it's the classic sort of Princeton, Harvard, Yale. They go to finance, they go to Wall Street. I didn't really like that. That to me just seems like a lot of, I don't know, I'd just be out of my mind. So I decided to go with Rise Fellowships. One was working with the Princeton Summer Journalism Program, where we took 50 kids nationwide from low-income community. They're juniors in high school with a passion for journalism, and we got them connected with a lot of journalists. If you've ever watched ESPN Now, we were able to get Mina Kimes to come through and talk about her experiences, which was a really great experience. I got that done. I feel proud about that. Me and my coworker Jamal were able to kind of get her in on time, which is great. We almost got Don Lemon as well to talk to these low income youths, and they're all so intelligent. I mean, it just shows you like it's just I don't know. Your heart goes out for a lot of people because of just how much intelligence people can have, and like how it can come down to like an opportunity that they either miss or that they don't have. So that was really a great experience. And my next one was doing a lot more research heavy on possible community carbon offsets for low income communities, what those kind of models would look like, and how to sort of take that back from like companies that use them a lot, like Exxon and Shell and I mean, all of them do, but Amazon is a big
Yeah.
Amazon. Delta admitted that their offsets were completely fraudulent too. Don't know if that really didn't make as big news as it should have been, but they were like charging what was it, like an extra $30 to be like, you can offset your trip for this amount, and it just was fake. Like they just basically made you spend $30 more. It might have been less than that, but I mean the average for 1 ton of carbon is like $25, so it wouldn't be surprising. But both of those were really fun for different reasons. I do like doing research, but I don't know, I like talking to people. I like helping people and seeing like people grow. And I think like 80% of those kids ended up getting into Ivy League schools. We had like I think out of the 50 we had, I think 10 go to Princeton, 5 got to Harvard, 5 got to Yale. I think like 10 got to Brown. So that was really great. I felt great about that just because it's awesome to hear. Like I love to like spread that. And I'm always looking for people here that can do that as well. One of my friends from high school, I graduated a year or two, doesn't matter, after before her. And I was able to help her with her college essays. I think she got to Swarthmore, which is a really good college, what they call a baby Ivy in Pennsylvania. And I'm always trying to help out. We have a lot of talent here. That's what I know. I know that we have a lot of talent here. We just need to start trying to find opportunities for it.
Okay, well, that kind of goes into my next thing. You being a young person with the obvious energy to make things happen. What do you think can get the youth of Shreveport to be more inclined to the environmental injustices that are happening across Shreveport, across racial lines, across this whole area? What would be kind of the thing that you would give the advice to adults to get them involved and to try to get the kids more involved, because the youth has that energy that we need. You know, your generation has that energy we need.
Yeah, I think well, I think for adults, you know, if you are connected with, you know, any kids, you know, it's always important to tell them that, you know, that their dreams matter, that they can do what they want to do, that just, you know, to tell them that and show them that, I think is really important. And then I think as well, it kind of, I don't know, it starts by like sort of being involved in education here. And I feel like a lot more people need to be, especially adults, need to be more involved in like preventing um, government control in classrooms. I think that teachers, the teachers that I had were passionate about things, and they showed me that like your circumstance doesn't matter. And also, I think for kids, I think for people like, you know, younger than me or around my age, I think what's important is to know that you can get into these spaces. Like, I mean, I didn't think about going really to colleges. Like that was sort of something I didn't have the luxury of thinking about until like junior year of like high school, like second semester. And like, if I feel like if, you know, that worked out for me, but I feel like if I could like, you know, show people or like try to show people that it is possible, that they can do this, that it's not some sort of like far off dream, that these places, you know, contrary to belief, are looking for right now geographic diversity because of what has happened with affirmative action. They're going to different places for diversity, and like that's what I know. I know that they are looking for people from Louisiana. They're looking for people from Mississippi, from poorer communities. And I feel like while that isn't talked about a lot, I think that that should be talked about. And that's sort of what I wanted, you know, to like pass across. And there's just so much advice that I have, I think, but like mainly, you know, don't just like, you know, give up, and don't think just because you're from Shreveport that no one cares about your opinion or that you don't belong in these spaces. Like you do. You belong in these spaces. You should be pushing yourself to be in these spaces. And if you do, you can help where you come from a lot. I feel like, you know, seeing positive news recently, I saw some one of the high school students from my old school got a Gates scholarship, I think, and that's just really incredible. Like that, again, we have talent here. I know we do. It, you know, it may seem like, you know, the public schools here are really bad, but that doesn't stop talent from being here. We have so much really good potential, not just in like sort of STEM, but also in policy and art and music. And I just think that it's important to invest in that. I think that would probably be my biggest advice for adults, is invest in that if you can. You know, invest in people and kids, you know's, you know, education. Like try to like, you know, provide as good a role model as you can. And hopefully more kids end up in spaces like that. Like I don't want, you know, Bobby Shell went to Princeton, that to be the end of the thing. I want he went to Princeton, and then this other kid, you know, from Shreve or from Bird or from Woodlawn or from places, you know, that
BTW.
and BTW.
Yeah, that's my school, baby. That's my school.
I want to see headlines like that. I want to see BTW be like, you know, we have a student, you know, here, we have a student here, we have a student here. And I think, you know, as much as Louisiana like colleges are good, I think a big deal of it is telling people to also apply for bigger schools, because while it seems counterintuitive, Ivy Leagues and like sort of those adjacent schools have the best financial aid you can like ask for. Like right now, from 4 years at Princeton, I only owe like $1,500. That's it. And that was for a computer loan because I didn't have a computer that was competitive enough to sort of keep up with all the softwares that I needed to run. And that was it. Like that's the only thing I ever paid for at school. And I think that to hear that, that sounds wild. Like, what, did you get a scholarship? Did you do it? No, they have need-based financial aid. And I think that like if you told kids about that, I mean, I think if I knew about that, I would have been already focusing on doing better in school. Like I just did it because like, you know, I didn't want to get in trouble with my dad. My dad, you know, definitely had high expectations from me, and I appreciate that. So I was kind of doing it out of, you know, I don't want to get in trouble at home. But if I knew that I had a shot at getting to to Princeton by just working a little bit like harder, like that I did that my junior year, I would have been all over it. I feel like I would have, been very, very, active in anything I could to get me a better shot at it. And so that was a long-winded way to say that like kids here matter. And I feel like, we get a lot of times wrapped up in sort of big national politics and big things like that. But truthfully, at Shreveport's level, we have too much talent to be where we are. And if we invested more into our kids, into our young people, I feel like we would be way better off. Like we'd be way better off than we are now. So yeah, long-winded way to say that, but
I mean, it was perfect though. It was perfect. I mean, I feel the same way. Even though I don't stay in Shreveport anymore, I stay in the Atlanta suburbs. That's kind of the same way I look at all public schools, and I look at all kids. And especially Shreveport, because I've been in different cities, I've been in different countries, and it truly is about investing in your future. And the more you invest in your future, the better your future is going to be. I mean, and you know, it hurts my heart to think back on the Bobby Jadal years where they were disinvesting in universities and stuff like that, and giving all of these tax breaks to these. I was like, what is going on? Like, why are you not putting the money in? Yes, you have to be smart with the money, right? But at the same time, you still have to invest in the future, right? No matter. Yeah, I'm gonna let your words, just say it all. And you said it so elegantly, but I don't want to hold up your whole time. It is Saturday, so you can go out and enjoy your Saturday, even though it's going to be super hot outside. At least be able to do something.
Bobby, I got to get involved with me in the classroom. You'd be a great inspiration over at Bethune Oak Park Elementary, and tutoring kids. Just need you for 1 hour a week, but you can do more if you want to. But 1 hour with one kid for a week, you could really inspire. I mean, if I can pull it off, it's amazing. You see a guy who's reading on a third grade level, but he's facing graduating and going to Fair Park for middle school or not. And to get him up to grade level and inspired and excited, you'd be fantastic while you're here. I know we're not going to get to keep you long, but while you're here in Shreveport, we could get you into some classrooms. You probably need to go speak at the school board more and thank them.
I need to get
they need a lot of inspiration at our school board, and I wish you'd run for school board. But
tell us, what is your future plans there, Bobby?
So I'm staying here for about a year I got back in June, and I'll be leaving in July of 2024. I'm moving in with my incredibly smart girlfriend. She's off in doing a Fulbright study right now. She's going for her chemistry PhD at MIT. Crazy, wild. I don't know how she's that smart and deals with some of my foolishness. But I'm moving in there and sort of working in the environmental justice sector in the Cambridge, Boston area. However, I do still have family in Shreveport, so I wouldn't rule out the possibility of coming back and even still helping via Zoom. I think, thankfully, Zoom, the pandemic was really bad, but thankfully Zoom has become a lot more popular. And so I feel like I could even do either tutoring sessions over Zoom, or even give talks or whatever, what have you, over Zoom if I can. I don't know, maybe we need to get the school board to have Zoom
coming up, and I'd love to have you pop in. It's just an hour on the second Thursday of each month, so you can come in and hang out, and everybody in there would love to meet you, and you could spend a few minutes talking about this stuff. But yeah, there's so many ways I could plug you in here while you're here.
Please,
I don't
do. Please do. I'd love to.
the NOCOG meetings, but it's early. It's at 9 a.m. That's kind of a challenge for me too. But you get 3 minutes, to make a pitch. And so I consider it one long 30-minute talk that I give over 10 months. You know what I mean? So pop in and give them a 3 minutes. It's been great catching up with you like this. And I look forward to running into you again soon, maybe at that at the Allendale Strong meeting. I think it's
that would be great. Yeah, just send me the details on that, and I can get there.
Get it on your calendar.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Well, Bobby, it has been a pleasure talking to you. We are, we're gonna plug you in. We're definitely gonna plug you in. We're gonna plug you in, and we need your energy. We need your enthusiasm, and definitely need your knowledge on environmental policies, and it's a great resource to have. We, like I said, we're going to plug you in and keep you in the loop. And while you're up there in Boston doing your environmental justice, we're definitely probably call you up and say, hey man, what's your opinion on this and that? So but we really want you to succeed, because your success, your success helps us out. It makes us happier to see a young man from the Shreveport area do great things.
Amen.
Just think about, John and myself, almost as your elders. We want to see you do great things, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Is anybody want to shout out real quick before we log off?
What about teacher? Well, don't hurt any feelings. What about some of your teachers, Bobby? You got to.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I can shout out. So my theater teacher, Miss Hooper at Captain Shreve, fantastic. She was at Ridgewood. I don't know if I think she might be retired now, but Miss Patterson, my English teacher, 7th grade, made my writing really good. I still go back to some of the things I learned from her. Miss Bartley and Mr. Scott at Shreve, Miss Doty, my history teacher, got me even more into history than I was. And I don't know if she still works there. I've been gone for a bit, but Miss Platt for chemistry helped me appreciate science a lot more. That was the one thing science and me never really got along, but somehow she was able to make me a pretty good chemistry student and a pretty good student of science more generally. So
I bet I could get a 500-word column out of you when you're back in Boston every now and then to publish here. Something like that. You might have time for 5.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bobby. This has been even better than I thought it. It's amazing having you on. So we'll have you back before you get out.
That'll be great. Yeah, no, I love all the questions and all the things that I've gotten to think about now. I've been here sort of not having classes and things to think about. It's been weird. My brain is not wired for this.
Yeah, Shreveport will do that to you.
I know, right? I know. Well, don't log off yet. But I want to thank everybody that is listening to this podcast. And I want to thank everybody that's watching this podcast on YouTube. Make sure you go to our website at allendalestrong.org. Make sure you check us out on Facebook as Friends of Allendale Strong, and also on Instagram and other social media platforms. Also, I want to just have everybody make sure you subscribe, and also listen to our podcast in anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, from Apple Music all the way up to Google Music and other places in between, like Audible. So from everybody at Allendale Strong, me, John, and Bobby, I want to thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.